In the 1990s and 1970s, two separate events occurred on different continents, sparking outrage and raising questions about government power and accountability, reporting on a tale of two raids that shook nations: the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas, and the Kalakuta Republic in Lagos, Nigeria, might seem worlds apart. Yet, these two locations became the epicenters of government raids that would leave lasting scars on their respective nations. In Waco, a religious group led by David Koresh found themselves at odds with federal authorities. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, musician and activist Fela Kuti had established Kalakuta as a haven for artists and dissidents. Both compounds represented a challenge to the status quo, attracting the attention and ultimately the ire of those in power. The Branch Davidian compound, located just outside Waco, Texas, was home to a religious group led by David Koresh.
We must prepare for what's coming. Our faith will be tested.
Sources indicate that concerns over alleged weapons violations and child abuse led to increased scrutiny from federal authorities. The compound, a sprawling 77-acre property, had become a self-contained community with its own belief system and way of life. On 28th of February 1993, ATF agents attempted to execute a search warrant at the Branch Davidian compound. The operation quickly spiraled into a fierce gun battle, resulting in casualties on both sides. This initial confrontation marked the beginning of a 51-day standoff that would captivate the nation and raise serious questions about the government's approach to the situation. For nearly 2 months, the world watched as negotiations between federal authorities and the Branch Davidians ebbed and flowed. However, as days turned into weeks, tensions continued to escalate, setting the stage for a dramatic and ultimately tragic finale. On April 19, 1993, the FBI launched a final assault on the Branch Davidian compound. Tear gas was pumped into the building in an attempt to force the occupants out. What happened next remains a subject of intense debate and investigation. A fire broke out, quickly engulfing the compound. In the chaos that ensued, 76 Branch Davidians, including David Koresh and numerous children, lost their lives. The tragic end to the Waco siege sent shockwaves through American society. Questions arose about the decision-making process that led to the final assault, the origin of the fire, and whether more could have been done to prevent the loss of life. The events at Waco would leave a lasting impact on discussions about government overreach and the use of force against civilian groups. Half a world away and nearly 2 decades earlier, another compound was making waves. The Kalakuta Republic, established by Nigerian musician and activist Fela Kuti, had become a symbol of resistance against the military government. Located in Lagos, Kalakuta was more than just Kuti's home. It was a self-proclaimed independent state, a recording studio, and a refuge for artists and political dissidents. As tensions mounted, it became clear that a confrontation was inevitable. On 18th of February 1977, the Nigerian military launched a brutal raid on the Kalakuta Republic. Eyewitness accounts describe a scene of chaos and violence as soldiers stormed the compound. The assault on Kalakuta was swift and merciless. Buildings were set ablaze, residents were beaten and arrested. The raid left Kalakuta in ruins and marked a dark chapter in Nigeria's history, exposing the lengths to which the military government would go to silence dissent. The destruction of Kalakuta had far-reaching consequences. Fela Kuti, though battered and temporarily silenced, emerged as an even more potent symbol of resistance. His music took on a new level of political charge, with albums like Zombie and Coffin for Head of State, directly addressing the raid and its aftermath. The international community took notice of the Kalakuta raid, shining a spotlight on human rights abuses in Nigeria. For many Nigerians, the event became a rallying cry against military oppression. The burned-out shell of Kalakuta stood as a stark reminder of the cost of challenging authority in a repressive regime. When examining the Waco siege and the Kalakuta raid side by side, disturbing parallels emerge. In both cases, government forces use overwhelming military-style tactics against civilian groups. The justifications given by authorities in both instances have been subject to scrutiny and skepticism. The scale of force employed in both raids raises questions about proportionality and necessity. In Waco, the use of tanks and tear gas against a compound housing children has been widely criticized. Similarly, the full military assault on Kalakuta seems grossly disproportionate. A key similarity between the Waco siege and the Kalakuta raid is the targeting of groups that existed on the fringes of mainstream society. The Branch Davidians, with their unconventional religious beliefs, represented challenges to the established order. The residents of Kalakuta, with their countercultural lifestyle and political activism, also posed a challenge to authorities. In both cases, there was a notable lack of attempt to understand or engage with these communities on their own terms. This approach not only led to tragic outcomes, but also deepened the divide between these marginalized groups and the broader society. The role of media in shaping public perception of these events cannot be overstated. In Waco, the 51-day siege became a media spectacle. The Kalakuta raid, while less extensively covered in real time, especially internationally, became a subject of intense media scrutiny in its aftermath. In both cases, media coverage played a crucial role in how these events were understood and remembered by the public. The initial portrayal of these events and the subsequent shift in narrative demonstrate the power of media framing. The scars left by the Waco siege and the Kalakuta raid run deep. In Waco, the tragedy became a rallying point for anti-government sentiments and conspiracy theories. For many, Waco represents a cautionary tale about the dangers of government overreach. In Nigeria, the destruction of Kalakuta and the brutal treatment of Fela Kuti and his followers strengthened the resolve of many to resist military rule. Both events continue to resonate in their respective cultures, influencing music, art, and political discourse decades later. In the aftermath of Waco and Kalakuta, investigations sought accountability. Congressional hearings and inquiries revealed failures in leadership. Experts questioned the tactics used by federal agencies in Waco. Nigeria's transition to democracy brought renewed scrutiny of past abuses. Calls grew to acknowledge and investigate the attack on Kalakuta. Both Waco and Kalakuta highlight the dangers of excessive force. These events underscore the importance of respecting marginalized groups. Advocates called for reform in how authorities engage with civilian groups. These incidents influence discussions about limits of government power. Reforms aim to balance security concerns with individual rights. Today, similar tensions echo the events of Waco and Kalakuta. Recent crackdowns on protests mirror past government overreach. Activists stress the need for constant vigilance in protecting rights. Officials grapple with balancing public order and individual freedoms. The past informs our approach to current conflicts and challenges. Waco and Calcutta reveal uncomfortable truths about power and vulnerability. They challenge us to question authority and strive for balance. In remembering, we honor the lost and commit to a just future. These events remind us to remain vigilant, protecting the delicate balance between security and freedom in our societies.